What gives love its shape? Do you ever stop and think about that? I'm not sure I did for a long time. I think we just go along in life and we think, I love this person, I love that person, I love my parents, I love my brothers and sisters most of the time. I love my girlfriend, I love my fiance, I love my wife, I love this TV show or that movie or this book or that musical group. We just love, 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 love. But how much of that are we rightly thinking about? What could shape our love? What would be a good way for our love to be shaped? I was listening to a podcast and reading a book not that long ago, and it was addressing this very idea. For Christians, for anybody, what if our love was shaped by the Ten Commandments? What if our love for God and our love for neighbor were shaped by the Ten Commandments? What would that look like? How do I love my parents? Well, the Ten Commandments say, honor your father and mother. That's a pretty good way to love them, because it transcends your feelings. Honor is something that you should do for somebody, your parents particularly, whether you're happy with them or not. Because let's all be honest, sometimes our parents upset us a little bit because they were trying to teach us things and we were being stubborn. Or am I the only one that ever happened with? So you can honor your parents even in days when you're not the most happy with them. And that's a way of loving them. How can you honor your spouse? There's a commandment for that. Thou shalt not commit adultery. That even applies outside of marriage, but particularly inside of marriage. How do you honor your spouse? By having a chaste marriage. I don't mean within the marriage. I mean the marriage is set apart. The marriage is pure. The marriage is chaste. You don't invite other people in, no matter how that might happen. How do you love your neighbor? One of the big ways to love your neighbor is to not covet. Coveting applies to almost everything else, right? But if you are seeking your neighbor's best, then you'll have a hard time coveting what your neighbor has, because that wouldn't be best for your neighbor. The commandment to not kill, not take innocent life, that does a big service to your neighbor. How do I love my neighbor? I don't kill him. But Jesus, that's one of those things Jesus takes to a whole new level, right? You might say, but Lord, I've never taken anyone's life. I've never shot them with a gun or stabbed them with a knife or blown them up. So I've kept that commandment. And the Lord would say back to you, if you've ever called your brother, your neighbor, a fool, then you've murdered him. It's as if you murdered him. So you love that neighbor by putting the best construction you can on what they say and do. It doesn't mean that you let evil go by. It doesn't mean that you even let false doctrine, false teaching, false beliefs go by, false practices. But you love them. That's where the Bible talks to us about being gentle and respectful, but truthful. Always the truth. We don't sacrifice the truth. We don't sacrifice the truth just to get along. But when we do speak the truth, share the truth, we don't do it out of anger to hurt. We do it gently and with respect. That's what God wants us to do. So God wants to shape our love. He wants to shape our love by His 10 Commandments. How do we honor God? How do we love God? We remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. We go to church on Sunday. We find ourselves regularly in Bible study because we don't despise the reading, preaching, and teaching of His Word. We don't misuse His name. And that's not limited to this idea of cursing, as a lot of people do, with God's name in the curse. We abuse God's name in a whole lot of ways because we have God's name. It's given to us at our baptism. So we don't misuse that name. That's very, very important. That's just a few things. You don't steal. That helps your neighbor. You don't steal because it doesn't belong to you. You had to covet it first, then steal it. You don't commit adultery because you had to covet first and then commit it. You don't murder first because you, in a way, coveted the absence of that person. Come on, people. Play nice. Everybody wants to get home because they were stuck in traffic for a while. Quick little side trip. Downtown Houston's all being sent home because there's a water main that broke that comes into town, a big 95-inch or so water main. So that will cause a serious lack of water pressure downtown, which will mean if anything goes wrong, then they wouldn't be able to get water pressure to fight fires, and wouldn't even probably be enough water pressure to make all the facilities run and flush and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I did want to just share this little thought about the shape of God's love because I read it in a wonderful book called Has American Christianity Failed by Pastor Brian Wolfmiller. I heard him talk about it on podcasts and on YouTube, and it really just struck home. It's like, that's what shapes love, true love. So read your 10 Commandments, pray your 10 Commandments, meditate on your 10 Commandments, and ask yourself, how is this shaping my love? Chris with Cafe Sola, having a little confessional Christian conversation with you. God's blessings on your day.